The 10th Year in Dusk. Chapter 1, Sunset Glow on the Basketball Court. The June wind, carrying the heat wave from the foot of the Rocky Mountains, swept the smell of the plastic court at Cherry Creek High School's basketball field far into the distance. The sunset dyed the Denver sky the color of orange soda. I stood in the shadows at the edge of the bleachers, staring at the figure in the black sleeveless t-shirt. Ethan Cole had just sunk a three-pointer. The moment the ball swished through the net, the screams from the girls on the sidelines nearly tore through the sky. He raised his hand to wipe his face, sweat dripped down his jawline into his collar, revealing taut arm muscles that carried the crisp energy unique to teenagers. When he finally pushed his way out of the crowd, I stepped forward, but his cold glare cut off my words before I could speak. "Quit your act," I gritted my teeth, my voice seething with anger. I'd known him too well over these 10 years, clearly, there was a smile hiding in the corner of his eyes, yet he insisted on putting on this unapproachable facade. As soon as the words left my mouth, his hand, still warm from the basketball, covered mine. His palm carried the scent of leather, sweat, and a faint hint of rubber, silencing me mid-sentence. The stares around us pricked like needles. I tried to pull away, but he held on tighter. His fingertips even brushed the mole at the corner of my mouth, a little habit he'd had since we were kids, always teasing me with it. "Done yelling?" He lowered his eyes, his eyelashes casting tiny shadows in the sunset glow. Muffled behind his hand, I shouted, "When the hell are you gonna confess to me?" He froze for a second, then let out a low laugh. The vibration of his chest traveled through his palm. When he pulled his hand away, he wiped a smudge of dirt off my cheek, his movements so natural it felt like he'd done it 1,000 times. Someone called for him to pass the ball in the distance. He caught the basketball flying toward him, his steps light as he walked back, his silhouette lazy yet confident. Over his shoulder he tossed, "Take your time waiting." Annoyed, I grabbed the empty bottle of Rocky Mountain Spring mineral water, a local Colorado brand, at my feet and threw it, hitting him square in the back. The bottle clattered to the ground. He turned to look at me, one eyebrow raised, the smile in his eyes impossible to hide. This was our 10th year knowing each other. From climbing trees together in the woods outside Boulder when we still wore diapers, to now, him the crush of every girl in school, me the childhood friend glued to Ethan, in everyone's mouths. Nothing seemed to change, yet everything felt different. Lately, though, I'd been overcome with unease. In 3 months, he'd turn 18. And according to the damn storyline stuck in my head, he'd meet Leah that autumn, the fated girl who would make him give up everything. I'd seen him in that storyline, giving up his early acceptance to Stanford, locking the gilded acceptance letter in a drawer for her, getting into a fight with thugs on the streets of downtown Denver to protect her, breaking his leg and still smiling, saying it's nothing, arguing with his parents over her, tearing up every ski competition trophy he'd won since childhood. That Ethan, proud as the sunrise over the Rockies, would become humble and stubborn, even the light in his eyes snuffed out. I couldn't let that happen to him. The court erupted in laughter again. Ethan caught the ball under the hoop, his reverse dunk so handsome it was hard to look away. A guy walked over to slap his shoulder, but Ethan frowned and brushed him off. He'd never liked people touching him, except for me. I stared in his direction, and suddenly our eyes met. He stood in the sunset glow, his hair darkened by sweat, his eyes clear and bright, looking straight at me before giving a tiny, deliberate raise of his eyebrow. How could I ever bear to let someone like that go to someone else? Chapter 2, Jack's Revelation. As the sun sank behind the Front Range, the basketball court gradually emptied. I sat under the old locust tree, watching Ethan towel off his hair. He always messed it up into a tousled mess, like a Rocky Mountain marmot just waking from hibernation. "Come on, let's head back," he said, standing in front of me, looking down at me. I looked up and glared. Not moving. My legs hurt. His patience was thin, he didn't waste words. He reached down, grabbed my arm, and pulled me to my feet. His palm was warm, his fingertips calloused from playing guitar, and when he held my wrist, his grip was just tight enough not to hurt. We walked along the edge of the playground, our shadows stretched long by the streetlights. Every now and then, a classmate heading home late would wave and tease us, calling us Colorado's most attached duo. Jack said half a year ago that you have a crush on me, I suddenly said, staring at his profile. Why haven't you done anything about it? Jack was our childhood friend, chatty as a parrot. At a camping trip in Colorado Springs last time, he'd had too much to drink, grabbed my arm, and yelled, "That Ethan guy mutters your name in his sleep. You two just need to get together already." Ethan stopped walking and frowned at me. Again with this. Jack saw it. I tugged his arm, swinging it lightly, and leaned in closer on purpose. You called my name at night. Were you so busy missing me you couldn't sleep? After 10 years of knowing him, I'd long since lost any sense of shyness. As kids, I'd stolen his Colorado handcrafted chocolates. When we got older, I'd borrowed his calculus homework. Now, I was even trying to steal his heart. He turned his head, his ears pinkening slightly, but he forced a stern expression. Quit picking up Jack's nonsense. Just tell me if it's true. I pressed, not letting up. Suddenly, he bent down, his face only a few centimeters from mine. The street light glinted in his eyes, like shattered starlight. I swallowed hard, but forced myself to glare. What are you looking at? Looking at how you got such a thick skin, he said, reaching out to flick my cheek. The warmth of his fingertip made my heart skip a beat. How'd you even grow it this thick? That night, he'd warned me repeatedly not to hang out with Jack anymore, his tone as serious as my dad's. My dad was an engineer at an aerospace company in Denver, always rigid and strict. But I knew Ethan never said things for no reason, and sure enough, the next morning during break, Jack stormed up the stairs, pointing at his red cheek, and yelling at me, "Your guy's a total jerk." He cornered me in Cherry Creek Park after school yesterday, saying I'm a bad influence on you. I couldn't help but laugh. Serves you right for running your mouth. I was telling the truth. Jack slammed his hand on the desk, then lowered his voice. But hey, something happened. We got a new student in class today, transferred from Colorado Springs. She's super pretty, and she's sitting right next to Ethan. The smile froze on my face. My heart felt like it was being squeezed tight. What's her name? Leah. Those two words hit me like a bomb. According to the storyline, Leah wasn't supposed to transfer until autumn. Why was she here so early? I practically ran to Ethan's classroom, pressing my face against the back window to peek inside. Sure enough, there was a girl sitting to his left. Short bobbed hair, a gentle profile, heads bent over her book. Sunlight streamed through the window, gilding her like a filter. No wonder Ethan would fall for her. I had to admit, she looked like the kind of person you couldn't help but want to protect, fragile like the alpine wildflowers on the Colorado plateau. Leah seemed to sense my gaze and looked up toward the window. Just as our eyes were about to meet, Ethan, who'd been napping on his desk, suddenly sat up. Ignoring the class monitor trying to keep order up front, he walked straight out the back door. You need something? He leaned against the wall, hands in his pockets, his eyes still lazy from sleep. Lunch? I looked up at him, my voice trembling a little. The school cafeteria was serving Colorado's famous green chili cheeseburgers today, our favorite. He lifted his wrist to check his watch, then smiled. You're really something, you know that. Ditching study hall yourself isn't enough, you want to drag me into it too. I grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the cafeteria. I want a green chili burger, and you're gonna grab one for me. Last time you got the one with the most cheese. Over lunch, I stared at his face and couldn't hold back. Your new classmate, her name's Leah. He said, shoveling food into his mouth casually. My desk was the only one with an empty seat next to it. She just transferred from the Springs, still doesn't know her way around. Tell her to move seats, I urged, panicking. He looked up at me, confused. Why? I'll get jealous, I said, forcing a coquettish tone, though my heart was racing. She's so pretty, if you sit next to each other every day, what if you fall for someone else? He didn't answer. Instead, he peeled the cheese slice off his own burger and slid it onto mine, urging me to eat. Hurry up. After this, we're going back to class to make up the study hall you skipped. I'm gonna watch you. I knew he wasn't taking me seriously. But I also knew fate would throw them together again and again, maybe by the bookshelves at the Denver Public Library, maybe on a hiking trail in Rocky Mountain National Park. Even if I stopped them now, eventually, they'd find their way to each other. Chapter 3, Confrontation in the Infirmary. 3 weeks after Leah transferred, something happened in PE class. I was in the classroom working on an AP biology assignment, when I heard someone shout, "Someone's hurt." I ran outside and saw Leah being supported by 2 girls, blood dripping down her knee, her face pale. And there was Ethan, kneeling in front of her, carefully examining her wound, his touch so gentle it made my chest ache. He'd never been this careful even when he was patching up my ski scrapes. I couldn't focus in class that afternoon, my mind completely occupied by images of the 2 of them. When school ended, I called Ethan, but no one answered. I searched around the playground and the teaching building, and finally spotted his mountain bike parked outside the school infirmary. It was the Cobra bike, a local Colorado brand his dad had given him for his 16th birthday. I pushed the door open in a hurry, not watching where I was going, and crashed into someone walking out. A familiar scent surrounded me. Ethan reached out to steady me by the waist, his voice laced with concern. "What's the rush? You almost fell." I looked up at him, my eyes instantly watering. "Why didn't you answer your phone?" "Left it in my locker during last period PE, he said, reaching up to smooth the messy hair I'd run around with. His movements were natural, intimate. "Just walked Leah to the infirmary to get her wound cleaned. Her knee's pretty scraped up, the nurse said she needs a tetanus shot." I turned to glance at the curtained cubicle inside, my voice trembling. "You brought her here?" She was practicing volleyball with some girls, didn't watch where she stepped and tripped," he said, pulling me toward the door. I helped the teacher carry the stretcher. "She just transferred here, doesn't have any friends yet." I stayed to wait with her while she got her until her parents could drive over from the Springs. "If I got hurt or sick, would you stay with me that long?" I stopped walking, tilting my head up to look at him, not wanting to miss a single expression on his face. His expression suddenly darkened. He reached out and pinched my cheek. "What kind of stupid question is that? Shut up if you're gonna talk nonsense. You're fine, why would anything happen to you?" I pulled his hand away, tears finally spilling over. "I just wanna know if you even care about me." He didn't say anything. He just pulled me along toward home. We walked along the Cherry Creek Trail, the streetlights stretching our shadows long. His silence was like a boulder from the Rockies, pressing down on me until I could barely breathe. I thought that was the worst of it, but a week later, Ethan got hurt because of Leah again. That night, I got a call from Jack, saying Ethan was in the emergency room at Denver General Hospital and telling me to hurry over. When I arrived, he was sitting in a chair, his arm wrapped in thick gauze that was seeping blood, faint bruises on his face. "What happened?" I grabbed his hand, my voice shaking. "Nothing," he said, forcing a smile to look casual, though his face was pale. "Leah got harassed by some thugs downtown. I passed by and helped her out." I knew about Leah's family situation, a blended family. Her stepdad owned a restaurant in Colorado Springs, her brother always picked on her. But Ethan, he could have just walked away. Downtown Denver was so chaotic, why did he have to get involved? When the doctor was changing his bandages, I stared at the ugly scratches on his arm, tears streaming down my face. "You never used to get hurt like this. You never even fell when you were skiing, and now you're all beat up for someone else." He reached up to wipe my tears, his touch light. "Quit crying. It's just a few scratches, they'll heal in a few days. You forget I was 3rd place in the Colorado Youth Ski Championships. This is nothing." While he was in the bathroom, I went to the front desk to pay the medical bill, then walked toward the bathroom down the corridor. The hospital was quiet late at night. I heard a girl's quiet sobs faintly, and as I got closer, I realized Leah was standing outside the bathroom door, crying to Ethan. "I'm so sorry, this is all my fault you got hurt." Leah's voice was choked with tears. "No one's ever been this nice to me before. My parents don't even care about me." My heart sank to the bottom of my stomach. Was she confessing to him? Just as Leah reached out to hug him, Ethan suddenly held up his hand to stop her, his voice cold. "You're thanking the wrong person. I'm not some saint. I would have helped any classmate. If I gave you the wrong idea, I'll be more careful to keep my distance from now on." He turned around and our eyes met. There was no surprise in his gaze, it was like he'd known I was there all along. Leah turned too, and I saw clear hostility in her eyes. So she'd known about me all along. Known about the 10 years Ethan and I had shared. On the way back, I leaned against the taxi window, staring at Denver's night lights, not saying a word. Ethan suddenly reached over and pinched my cheek. "Still mad? Why do you have to be so nice to her?" I asked. "No one in class talks to her. She always sits alone in the cafeteria corner eating a sandwich. I'm her desk mate, is it so wrong to help her out a little?" He frowned, like he couldn't understand why I was making such a big deal out of it. "It's like when we were kids in Boulder, and those older kids were picking on you. Didn't I stick up for you then too? But you've never been this nice to anyone else before," I said, my eyes red. "You only used to be nice to me. You said I was the most important person to you." He fell silent. After a long time, he spoke. "Can we talk about this after the college entrance exam? Right now we should both focus on studying. We're supposed to get into the University of Colorado Boulder together, aren't we? Will you be with me after the exam?" I pressed. He looked down at me, his eyes serious. "Depends on your grades first. If you get a 5 on your AP Bio exam, we'll try. I don't want a date right now, it'll distract us from studying." It was the first clear hint he'd ever given me. I smiled and reached up to hug him around the waist. He didn't push me away. Instead, he patted my back gently. In that moment, I thought we might actually be able to escape the storyline's plan. But I didn't notice the complexity and hesitation in his eyes when he pulled away, like the unpredictable clouds over the Rockies. Chapter 4: Sudden Coldness. The next morning, I waited for Ethan outside his house, carrying breakfast. His family lived in a small villa in the Denver suburbs, with Colorado's state flower, columbines, planted in the yard. He was 10 minutes later than usual, faint dark circles under his eyes, like he hadn't slept well. "Brought you cinnamon rolls and hot cocoa from that morning bakery downtown," I said, holding out the breakfast. My fingers brushed his accidentally. We'd done this 100 times before. I'd even use it as an excuse to cling to his hand and be stubborn. But this time, he pulled his hand back like he'd been burned. The breakfast fell to the ground, hot cocoa spilling everywhere, cinnamon rolls rolling onto the lawn. "What's wrong with you?" I froze, bending down to pick up the crumpled wrappers. "Are you not feeling well? Does your wound hurt from yesterday?" He stood on the steps, looking down at me, his eyes cold and unreadable. "I'm fine. Let's go, we're gonna be late." He walked down the steps first, not looking back, not waiting for me. I followed behind him, staring at his back. My heart felt like it was being pricked by needles. In 10 years, this was the first time he'd ever been this cold to me. Even when my favorite cinnamon rolls fell on the ground, he didn't even glance back. From that day on, everything changed. He stopped walking to school with me. Sometimes his dad's driver dropped him off, sometimes he rode his mountain bike and left early. Once, I even saw Leah sitting on the back of his bike. They were riding along the Cherry Creek Trail, and Leah was holding a Starbucks Frappuccino, a drink Ethan had always hated, saying it was too sweet and cloying. He stopped eating lunch with me, stopped helping me take notes for AP Bio. Even when we passed each other in the hallway, he'd cross to the other side to avoid me. Once, I was looking for a copy of Colorado Plant Field Guide in the library, and ran into him. I opened my mouth to say hi, but he turned and hid behind a bookshelf. I went to find him, but he locked himself in his classroom and refused to come out. I asked a classmate to call him, but he said he was busy. Finally, I had no choice. I grabbed my calculus workbook and walked straight into his classroom, slamming it down on his desk. "Ethan, I don't get this problem. Explain it to me, like you used to." The classroom fell silent instantly. Every eye turned to me. Leah looked up at me, a hint of disdain in her eyes, and deliberately leaned closer to Ethan. But Ethan, he didn't even lift his head. He just said coldly, "Get out. You said if I ever didn't understand something, I could ask you." I held back tears, my voice trembling. "You said we'd get into the University of Colorado together." Finally, he looked up. His eyes were filled with disgust. "My words don't count anymore. Is that a problem? Quit bothering me. Leah and I need to study together, we don't have time for you." With that, he stood up and walked out of the classroom, never glancing at me again. I stood frozen in place, tears finally spilling over. The whispers around me pricked like needles. "She's so delusional. Ethan obviously likes Leah." I knew then, the Ethan who used to gently wipe my tears, who used to stargaze with me in Boulder, was gone forever. Colorado's first snow came early that year, falling in early November. I waited for Ethan at the Cherry Creek Park intersection on his way home. The snow fell heavily. I stood in the snow, my hair and clothes soaked through, clutching a box of handcrafted chocolates I'd bought for him, his favorite dark chocolate. It wasn't until 10 p.m. that he rode up on his bike. When he saw me, he didn't stop. He just rode straight into his garage. "Ethan!" I chased after him, my voice thin in the snowy night. "Did I push you too hard? If you don't want to be with me after the exam, that's okay, just tell me, please. Don't leave me hanging like this. It hurts." He stood with his back to me, not saying a word. His shoulders trembled slightly. "I'll study hard. I'll get into the same college as you, whether it's CU Boulder or Stanford, I'll go wherever you go," I sobbed. Snowflakes landed on my face, cold as ice. "Just don't ignore me, okay?" "No need," he finally said, his voice colder than the snow outside. "Go to whatever school you want. Don't come to the same one as me. I never want to see you again." My heart went completely cold. I took a step forward, wanting to brush the snow off his coat, but he jumped back like he was scared, moving so fast his bike toppled over onto the ground. "What are you doing?" His eyes were fierce, like he was looking at a stranger. "Quit coming near me, or I won't be nice to you." That night, I stood in the snow for a long time, until my hands and feet were stiff with cold, before finally going home. I couldn't understand. How could someone who'd promised me a future just days ago change so completely? Had he really fallen in love with Leah? After 10 years of being together, did our bond mean less than the few months he'd known her? Chapter 5, The Hidden Secret. By spring, the news that Ethan and Leah were together had spread across the entire school. Someone saw them studying together at the Denver Public Library, someone saw them walking on the CU Boulder campus, someone even saw Ethan buying Ben Jerry's ice cream for Leah, something he'd always hated, saying it was too sweet and fattening. No matter how much I'd begged him before, he'd never eaten it. I threw myself into studying, pouring all my energy into it. Only when I was solving problems could I temporarily forget Ethan's coldness. Every day, I holed up in the library from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., AP Biology, Calculus, U.S. History. I didn't dare slack off on a single subject. I thought, even if I couldn't be with him, I'd get into CU Boulder, my dream school, and study environmental science, my dream major. During the pre-college medical exam, I was diagnosed with late-stage lung cancer. The doctor said I had at most 6 months left. Even though Colorado's air was clean, my condition was progressing fast. It had already spread to the tissues around my lungs. I didn't tell anyone, not even Ethan. I just started keeping a diary, writing down everything I wanted to say to him, from the first time we'd met in Boulder, to skiing together, camping together, watching sunsets in Cherry Creek Park. I thought, when I was gone, maybe these diaries would let him know how much I'd loved him for a whole decade. On the last day of the college entrance exam, a guy who'd liked me for half a year confessed to me. He was a classmate of mine, Noah, gentle, kind. He knew I loved Colorado's wildflowers, and had even brought me a bouquet of columbines for my birthday. I said yes, not because I liked him, but because I wanted to see if Ethan would care. That night, Noah walked me home and asked if he could hug me. I leaned into him voluntarily, and from the corner of my eye, I saw a shadow by the wall. It was Ethan. He was standing behind a tree, holding a small box in his hand, like he'd been on his way to give me something. He stepped out from behind the tree, wearing a black t-shirt and jeans. His expression was as dark as a Denver thunderstorm. I smiled and said, "I'm planning to study abroad. Applied to UC Berkeley. I won't bother you anymore. You can be with Leah now, like you want." His body stiffened. He didn't say anything, just gripped the box in his hand tighter. "You don't look happy with Leah," I said, looking into his eyes. The loneliness in them was impossible to hide. "You weren't like this before. You used to smile all the time, like the sun over the Rockies." "Do you even know him?" he said, his voice rough, like something was stuck in his throat. "Noah doesn't know you at all. He doesn't know you love Boulder's wildflowers, doesn't know you only eat dark chocolate, doesn't know you're scared of the dark. You learn those things as you date," I said on purpose. "Aren't you with Leah now? Why do you even care what I do? You should be wishing me happiness." Suddenly, he reached out, like he wanted to touch my face, but stopped halfway. I saw his hand shaking. And in that moment, I suddenly understood, he didn't not love me. He had his reasons. "Is it true that if you touch me, I'll disappear?" I whispered. On his birthday, I'd seen him try to come near me, and my arm had suddenly turned transparent, like I was fading away. His face turned deathly pale. He dropped to his knees, covering his face with his hands. "When did you find out?" "On your 18th birthday, at Cherry Creek Park. You tried to come over to give me a gift, and my arm suddenly went transparent." I knelt down beside him, afraid to touch him, scared I really would disappear. "It was fate warning you, wasn't it? Warning you to stay away from me, to get close to Leah, or I'd disappear." He nodded, his voice muffled. "Ever since then, every time I got close to you, you'd start to fade. I looked up so much information, asked psychics in Boulder, tried everything to find a way, but nothing worked. If being near me would make you disappear, I'd rather you stay far away from me. At least then you'd be alive, you could still go to school, still see the wildflowers you love." So he didn't not love me. He was protecting me in his own way. I couldn't hold back my tears, reaching out to hug him, but pulling back, scared I'd disappear. Tears fell onto the snow, freezing instantly. "I'm leaving," I said, wiping my tears. "Next month. Going to California for treatment and to study. I'll write you letters, one every year, until you're 100 years old." He looked up at me, his eyes red, like a kid who'd just been crying. "Do you really have to go? Can't you stay? I can find another way, I can." "No," I said, forcing a smile. "I'll love you for a long, long time. Even after you forget me. You have to be okay, whether you're with Leah or someone else, you have to be happy. Like you used to be." That night, we sat under the locust tree downstairs, talking from sunset until the full moon hung high in the sky. He told me stories from when we were kids, climbing trees together in Boulder's woods, sneaking cherries from the neighbor's tree, camping and stargazing in Rocky Mountain National Park. He told me about the first time he'd realized he loved me, on my 12th birthday, when I'd cried because my parents were fighting. He'd given me his favorite ski medal, saying, "I'll protect you from now on." I leaned my head on his shoulder, listening to his voice, my heart filled with reluctance. But I knew I had to go. I couldn't let him go against fate for me, couldn't let him watch me disappear. Colorado's moonlight was bright, shining down on us, like a gentle period at the end of our 10 years together. Chapter 6, 82 Letters. After moving abroad, I checked into the hospital affiliated with UC San Francisco. My condition worsened quickly. I started coughing constantly, running fevers, and lost the strength even to hold a pen. But I kept writing letters, every letter filled with stories of my life in California, the Pacific sunsets I'd watched, the interesting people I'd met. I never mentioned my illness. In the letters, I told him the sun in California was warm, warmer even than Denver's. I told him I'd seen plants on the Berkeley campus that didn't grow in Colorado. I told him I still loved Boulder's wildflowers, and that I'd come back to see them when spring came. The nurse asked me, "How many letters are you gonna write? You're at it every day, your hands are all swollen." 82, I said, smiling. He's 18 now. I want him to live to be 100. 1 letter a year, that way, he'll never forget me. I wrote 24 letters, telling him about the time we'd flown kites by the river in Boulder when he was 12, the kite string had broken, he'd jumped into the river to get it back, almost drowned, and I'd had to run to get his dad. I wrote about when he was 15, how I'd failed my AP bio exam, and he'd run 10 laps around Cherry Creek Park with me, saying, "Just try harder next time. I'll help you study." I wrote about when he was 17, how he'd smiled at me on the basketball court, the sunset glow on his face like a painting, the most handsome sight I'd ever seen. But I never got to finish the 82 letters. By the 79th letter, I didn't even have the strength to open my eyes. When my consciousness faded, I kept thinking of Ethan, his smile, his hugs, the way he'd said, "We'll be together after the exam," the sunrise we'd watched together in the Rockies. I thought I heard someone calling my name, Ethan's voice. He was saying, "Come back, please." Saying, I was wrong. Saying, "I don't want to be with Leah. I only want to be with you." I wanted to open my eyes to look at him, but my eyelids were too heavy. I couldn't lift them. Later, I found out that after I left, Ethan texted me every day, asking how I was doing in California, when I'd come back, if the sun there was really warmer than Denver's. But he never got a reply. I'd already canceled my phone number. The letters were all sent in advance, entrusted to the nurse to mail to him every year on time. He waited for me a year, then another. Every year, right before his birthday, he'd receive a letter from me, filled with my longing for him, my hopes for the future. He kept those letters carefully locked in a safe, in his dorm room at CU Boulder. He took them out to read every day, like that could bring him closer to me. He got into CU Boulder and studied environmental science, my favorite major. He said he wanted to fulfill my dream for me. On the 5th year, he married Leah. Not because he loved her, but because of fate's warning, if he didn't marry Leah, I would disappear completely, not even my soul left behind. He had no choice but to give in, to watch himself step into the ending the storyline had planned for him. The wedding was small, held at a little church in Colorado Springs. He didn't smile once the whole time, and he held my first letter in his hand the entire day. On the 12th year, he finally learned the truth. He'd gone to the post office in Denver, wanting to send me a letter, telling me the Colorado blue spruces back home had grown taller, that Boulder's wildflowers were blooming again, that he missed me so much. But the postal worker told him the return address had been empty for years. The letters had all been sent by the nurses at UCSF Medical Center, following my last wish. I'd died 10 years earlier. He'd rushed to California like a madman, found the hospital, and with the nurses' help, found the cemetery outside the city. He stopped in front of a tombstone. The photo on the stone was of me at 17, smiling brightly. Next to it, a line was carved, "Here lies a girl who loved Colorado. She will live forever in the summer of her 18th year." He knelt down in front of the tombstone, spreading the letters out one by one. Tears fell onto the paper, blurring the words. "Emily," he sobbed, his voice hoarse. "I know I was wrong. Please come back. I don't want to be with Leah. I only want to be with you. I got in to see you Boulder. I studied environmental science. I saw the wildflowers in Boulder for you, climbed the Rockies for you. But without you, none of it matters. I'm not happy at all." But he'd never get a response from me again. That night, he drove to Rocky Mountain National Park, hiking along the trail we'd walked together so many times, and finally stopped at the spot where we'd watched the sunrise. He looked at the glow in the distance, just like the first time we'd watched the sunrise together. He took out his phone, playing the song we'd listened to so many times, and slowly closed his eyes. People said that after he died, someone saw a young couple walking hand in hand in the sunset glow of the Rockies. The boy wore a black sleeveless t-shirt, the girl had a mole at the corner of her mouth when she smiled. They looked just like Ethan and Emily, 10 years earlier. The sun set again. The sunset glow on Cherry Creek High School's basketball court was still as bright as ever. But the boy in the black sleeveless t-shirt would never come back. The wind in Colorado still blew, carrying the scent of pine needles from the Rockies, as if telling a story of 10 years of love and regret.